Hello guys, I am back once again with a brand new Doctor Who review. Now in today's video sees the return of a previous series I used to do on my channel. About 4 months ago I last did a video for that series, and it is the return of my Doctor Who marathon. The last review I did was the Daemons back in early April, and then after that review started series 10. Yeah, all of those previews and reviews, and then straight after series 10 I started to do more merchandise showcases, Big Finish audio, starting them off. I mean, I'm not a guy who gets into Big Finish, but I'm now starting to get into Big Finish, which I need some more recommendations. And I think that's starting off all of these brand new series like the top 10s, the merchandise showcases have been really fantastic on this channel. But the one thing that I stick true to myself is the reviews, and I think the reviews, for my personal opinion, is my strongest point on this channel. And so I'm going to be continuing with my Doctor Who marathon, as today we are going to be reviewing a story that sees the triumphant return of the devilish Daleks from the 1960s to the 1970s. Yes, in today's review we are going to be reviewing Day of the Daleks. Day of the Daleks is an amazing, great Dalek story. My personal favourite Dalek story from the John Pertwee era. Although you have the other stories like you've got Planet of the Daleks, you've got Death to the Daleks, I wouldn't class Frontier in Space as a Dalek story. It doesn't really feature the Daleks a lot, and I think that's Frontier in Space, as the Daleks only appear at the end and lead into Planet of the Daleks. Frontier in Space I don't count as a Dalek story. However, I think Day of the Daleks is the strongest Dalek story in the John Pertwee era. It's probably not one of my favourite Dalek stories of all time, but it's up there as one of the best Dalek stories from the John Pertwee era, as I find this one highly enjoyable. Planet has some issues and I do like it in some way, and Death to the Daleks is a fun, little, enjoyable Dalek story. But I think Day of the Daleks is a truly brilliant Dalek story, in my personal opinion. Again, it's not one of the best, but it stands out as one of the great Dalek stories. And so, we might as well get to it by starting off with the synopsis. Day of the Daleks, written by Louis Marks. On Earth in the 22nd century, Daleks have enslaved the planet and humans live in fear of their masters. Meanwhile, back in the 20th century, a peace conference is urgently needed to prevent World War III. When reports reach units of a ghost at Audley House, the site for the conference, the Doctor and Joe decide to investigate. The danger is waiting for them, including a trip 200 years into the future without the TARDIS. Now, in this story, there are some elements with time travel, and in my personal opinion, this story explains time travel perfectly. It explains the causes, the effects, the consequences, and all of the theories around time travel and how it's manipulated into the story. It's absolutely an amazing plotline. Louis Marks did an absolutely fantastic job with this plotline. You have, in the 20th century, you have Sir Reginald Styles, who's planning a world peace conference, and if that does not work out, then it's going to lead to World War III. And by that point, in another universe, in the 22nd century, the Daleks plan to take over the world from that World War III and see it as their opportunity to enslave humans and gather raw materials and resources so they can send all of those materials to Skaro so they can rebuild their Dalek empire. But also you have the Gorillas timeline in this as well. Basically, in their history, they see Styles as a murderous killer and they plan to murder him to prevent his plan from taking over the world and causing World War III. And so I think it's absolutely an amazing, clever and ingenious plotline by Louis Marks. It's one of the most strongest plot lines in the 1970s, and I really do like Day of the Daleks a lot. And I think the one reason why I like it is because of the strong plot line. If you're going to succeed with a story, it has to have an amazing plot line, and Day of the Daleks succeeds with that plot line. The Daleks are really good in this. However, I would have liked the Daleks to be more in it. I would have liked to have them more action with them, because I think throughout most of the story they were just situated in one room. But I think when it came to episode 4, where they had that big massive battle with the Ogrons and also with units, I think that was mainly the Daleks' shining points for Day of the Daleks. And it's one of the most memorable moments from Day of the Daleks. That fight scene at the end was so incredible, with all of the killing and all of the explosions. It's such a really intense battle. And I really do like the incidental music and also the sound effects throughout the story. It really is so fantastic just to hear all these amazing sound effects of all the guns, the blastering, but also all of the time travel kind of maneuvering sound effects. It's absolutely amazing. And also the incidental music is really, really good. I really do like Day of the Daleks a lot. I find it's such of a highly enjoyable, fun Dalek story. The plotline is just the highlight of this story for me. I think that in the original version, the Dalek voices are awful. They're absolutely awful. I mean, the Gold Dalek in particular doesn't sound like a Dalek like we would find as a Dalek. The Gold Dalek just has a voice in the original edition, like, whoever is in possession of the time machine is an enemy of the Daleks. That doesn't sound like a Dalek at all. I find so much negativity with the Dalek voices. The Dalek voices are not done well. However, in the special edition, the Dalek voices are done with passion by Nicholas Briggs. And Nicholas Briggs doing the Dalek voices, he does it with passion, and I could just really find that overall ruthless and aggression with the Daleks in the special edition. With the normal edition, I just find like, oh, I can't be arsed. We just need to find the intruders and stuff like that. Just the voices, they don't sound compassionate. I don't see any passion or energy from the Daleks in the original edition. However, with the special edition, the voices are really wonderful and spectacular. But the effects in the special edition with new sequences and new special effects, I think they go too over the top with the effects. I think they plan to be too ambitious for this story. I think they added some really great, interesting special effects that they were really, really good, but then you had some effects which really weren't needed at all, just to make the whole story special. I think the special edition on its own is really, really good, and it makes Day of the Daleks pretty special anyway, because of all of the amazing, great, good sequences. Some of the sequences weren't needed at all, but I think some of the great effects were really good. However, some of them were a bit done over the top, some of them were needed. However, I generally prefer the special edition, as it's more of a modernised Day of the Daleks with more added effects and new voices, and it's just really just looks like a really great story. And I think that the visuals in special edition looks better than in the original edition. However, I think the characters in this story is absolutely amazing. I think there are a few people who I really like in this story. The one person who I want to talk about first are the Gorilla People. The Gorilla People are really, really ruthless, really aggressive, and I find them such of an amazing threat in this. And I find them more of the threat in this rather than the Daleks, which seems quite stupid to me. Surely the Daleks should be the only threat in the story. I see the Gorilla People as a very threatening force in this, because they're really ruthless in episodes 1, 2 and 3, but then as episode 4 comes around, you can sort of see that their personality starts to change and they start to help out Joe and the Doctor, and I really, really like their personality in episode 4, as well as with episodes 1, 2 and 3, 4, because they were ruthless at the beginning, and because they were planning to kill Styles and to change their course of history so they could save mankind. And so I thought that the gorilla people, they had a point to prove and they had a plan, a duty to do, and I thought their role in the story really made the entire element of time travel more dangerous, in my opinion. They made the whole thing about time travel very dangerous, very bleak, and their costumes, they look like really great soldiers with like the gorillas kind of like suits. They look like the gorillas themselves, but I think that calling them gorillas is sort of a weird name for them, but I do see them as a real threat in this. I think they're really good, and I think the Ogrons in this, I think they should be more called the gorillas in this, because the Ogrons are sort of clumsy in this. They're not really well executed in this. I think the Ogrons, they just have a lack of confidence. They just don't really do much. They have a lack of energy and they literally just fall over. They're quite clumsy and they really just don't do much apart from them just being there for being bodyguards and stuff like that. However, I think the Ogrons, they could have been executed much better, and I think they would have been used a whole lot better if they did more of the action, and if they weren't really sloppy or very clumsy, then they would have been a whole lot better in Day of the Daleks. But I think that the controller I don't know who the controller is played by, but I remember the actor who plays the controller. He's absolutely amazing. He's one of my favourite characters in this, because at the beginning, you can see so much hospitality from his character. He's very charming, he's very kind towards Joe in particular, who, when Joe gets transported by the time machine, that little box, almost like a vortex manipulator, she gets transported to the 22nd century, and I think that's such a, you know, a weird conspiracy of how she's time traveled from like 200 years into the future, and I think it's such an amazing experience for Joe to really have that experience of time travel, but not throughout the TARDIS. And it's much more of a dangerous version of time travel, as the TARDIS is more of a safe place where you can travel in time, but you don't get mixed around in like time vortex and like paradoxes and other time rifts and stuff like that. But I think she gets literally exposed to all of that, and it was morely much of a dangerous experience for Joe. But I think the controller does care for Joe in some way, but also shows a lot of hospitality and kindness towards Joe. But then when the Doctor arrives, he still has that hospitality and kindness towards the Doctor, but then you get to see more of a ruthless and kind of cunning but also quite sinister personality from the controller. I think when it comes to episode 4 or 3, I think he becomes a bit more sinister. He can boss the Daleks around, and I think nobody on the Earth can boss the Daleks around apart from the controller, and I think he has a bit more control than the Daleks. But then as the story goes on, you can sort of see that he loses control, and it's very much like in every single episode you can see he has so much power, but he's working for the Daleks, but it looks like that he's contradicting the Daleks in what they believe in and what they should do. But the controller controls about everything, and when it comes to episode 4 in particular, everything goes downhill for the controller, and basically the Daleks know what the controller's planning. And there was one character which I don't know his name, however there is a soldier in where the Daleks are being situated in. There's a guard who kind of sneaks around and kind of spots the controller here and there and catches him out one time, and then he reports back to the Daleks saying that the controller has almost like betrayed the Daleks. And then the Daleks find out how loyal that soldier was, but also how unworthy the controller is, and they found out how the controller has lied and betrayed the Daleks, and then they exterminate the controller. And I think that's when they released Joe and the Doctor into the tunnels, and he just says, go, just go, and like, you saved me, just go. And then they find out that the controller has betrayed the Daleks, and just the Daleks have known about that since the beginning, and the controller just didn't fit well to command at all. And I think from episode 4 you could just see the decrease of the controlling that he did, and he didn't really play much of a controlling part in episode 4, and then at the end he was exterminated by the Daleks, which I felt it was unfortunate for him, but I think he deserved it because he did betray the Daleks, and if somebody betrays the Daleks, then you know what could happen to you. But I think that the entire story itself, I think the plotline is seriously well executed, but also I think the Daleks, I wish they could have had more to do. I think if it's going to be called Day of the Daleks, you should have more action sequences with the Daleks. You should do more with the Daleks. But having them only in episode 4 to do all of the action, like all of the exterminations and blowing stuff up and invading the house, I think most of it could have been a whole lot better with all of the Daleks sneaking around the place and being quite secretive and very exterminating all of the gorillas while just being sitting there and, you know, just taking control and just doing nothing. I just wish the dogs should just get out more and just kill those gorilla people, because the dogs would have made a whole much of a bigger threat. However, I think the gorillas in this, they're more of the threat than the Daleks are in the story. But I think when episode 4 comes around, Joe and the Doctor team up with the gorillas, and then they fight against the Daleks and their evil plan for taking over the Earth with World War III in Conquest. They've taken over from World War III, and they plan to enslave humans and steal resources and send them all the way into Skaro so they can rebuild their Dalek Empire. And I think I really, really like that plot twist. But also all of the 3 different dilemmas you've got. You've got present day, where it's original Styles, if he fails the peace conference, then World War III can take place and it will be the end of the world. But also you've got the 22nd century, where you've got these guerrillas soldiers, and they basically try and manipulate the course of history by killing Styles before he succeeds with his plan of failing the peace conference, and that would lead to World War III. So they're trying to change history, so they do it by stealing all of the formulas from the Daleks, like their time machines but also their weaponry. And so the guerrillas, they're very secretive, and they gather so much information from the Daleks and they just manipulate it to their advantage, and they feel more of the dominant threat with all of the advanced time machine boxes, but also the advanced weaponry as well. And so the guerrillas, they're really, really good in this. But also I think Jo has a really great part to play in this, as she very much cares for the Doctor, but also you can also see how how Jo has so much faith in the Controller, and she knows that the Controller can trust the Doctor, but the Doctor doesn't know if he can trust the Control or not. Because I think in most of the scenes in episode 3 and 4, when you see the Doctor facing off against the Controller, you could just see how different the Controller is, from being a charming, nice guy, but then becoming more of a sinister and cunning kind of, you know, Controller, if you know what I mean. And I think the scenes with Jon Pertwee with the Controller were absolutely amazing. And I think Jon Pertwee as well, he's absolutely sensational in this story, as well as with the amazing plotline as well. I think the storyline by Louis Marks, having all of these 3 dilemmas leading to one big massive catastrophe, is so well thought out. It's a very clever and a very ingenious plotline, which I absolutely love to bits. And I think the special edition has some really great sequences. The Dalek voices are really good, and I really do like Day of the Daleks a lot. I find it such of a highly enjoyable Dalek story, in my opinion. I think it's definitely up there as one of the best Dalek stories from the Jon Pertwee era. But will you class it as a brilliant Dalek story of all time? For me, I think it's up there, but many people sort of have a soft spot for Day of the Daleks because they find it so underrated, because you've got like those massive best Dalek stories, like you've got Power of the Daleks, you've got Evil of the Daleks, you've got Genesis, you've got Resurrection, you've got Remembrance, you've got Revelation, but nobody remembers Day of the Daleks. But I think it's such of an underrated Dalek story, and I think it definitely needs to be more appreciated. But my overall rating for Day of the Daleks would have to be an 8.5 out of 10. I wouldn't rate it highly because there are some negatives about the story, especially with the original edition, the Dalek voices that aren't really well executed that well. I think the direction, it could have been a whole lot better with better direction, and I think maybe the characters, they could have been better, especially the Ogrons as well. The Ogrons, they didn't really feel like more of a threat. They just felt really clumsy and very droopy in the story. But I think an 8.5 out of 10 rating is a great solid rating for Day of the Daleks, and if you've not seen Day of the Daleks yet, then I highly recommend you go and pick up this DVD, Day of the Daleks, and make sure you watch both the normal edition and special edition, because then you get to see which version you like the best. Do you like the original edition or do you like the special edition? Sometimes the effects in the special edition can go a bit over the top, but it's generally to your opinions, guys. Which edition do you prefer? Do you prefer the special edition or the normal edition? For me, I personally prefer the special edition because it feels a whole lot special in some way. But I think the plotline is truly the best thing I like about this story, because Louis Marks is an incredible writer, and I think for one time Terry Nation, although he's done most of the Dalek stories like the Dalek Master Plan, however, he didn't write the 2 Dalek stories in the Patrick Troughton era. Those were written by David Whittaker. And I think David Whittaker, for doing Power and Evil of the Daleks, I think he succeeded with those stories really well. But I think with Day of the Daleks, I think that Louis Marks is a much better writer to portray the Daleks. Although the Daleks don't do much, I think the plotline is truly up there as one of his strong points. And I think it's one of the best careful, complex plot lines of all time, I believe, and it's a really clever and ingenious plot line that I really like about the story. And so yes, that is my review on Day of the Daleks. So thank you very much, guys, for watching for this review. I hope you have enjoyed it. Be sure to leave a like on this video, and remember to please comment down below and tell me your thoughts on Day of the Daleks. Do you like it? Do you love it? Or do you just don't find it as a really great, enjoyable Dalek story? Please do tell me your comments in the comments section down below, and be sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Thank you very much, guys, for watching, and I cannot believe that we've done the return of my Doctor Who marathon, and I'm planning to do more exciting Doctor Who reviews next time. So thank you very much, guys, for watching for this review, and I'll see you guys next time in the next video. Until then, guys, have a great day. See you guys later.